So we are delighted to welcome to our district synod, Engage All, none other than the local MP for Lancaster and Fleetwood, Kat Smith. Good day to you, Kat. How are you today?
Hello, Phil. I'm good. I'm sorry that I can't be there in person. I have a big event on tomorrow, so I'm having to head down to London much earlier than I normally would in the average week.
And this big event that you've got tomorrow is you're running the London Marathon, for goodness sake.
Yeah, I do feel very anxious about running quite a long way tomorrow, but I'm doing it for St John's Hospice in Lancaster, who just offers so much support for people locally, with end of life care and support for families. And they've got a special new unit for bereaved children. And I've been in awe at their work for such a long time. It's nice to be able to do something to try and give back. So I have a fundraising page, which is on my social media if anyone wants to go and seek it out. But I think far more than that, anyone, if they could remember me in their prayers that I actually survived the London Marathon, get to the finish line, I'm sure that would be much appreciated.
But
As
you,
no training, I need all the help I can get.
you're experienced at the London Marathon. You're suggesting. So what's the time to beat?
Well, it took me 6 hours last time, so I'm not a natural runner. I'm not doing this because I'm an athlete. It's just a really nice opportunity to be able to raise funds for local charities. Last time I did it for the local food banks. So my job as an MP, I see so much good going on in our communities that sometimes asking questions and speaking in debates in Parliament just doesn't feel like enough. And I've taken the opportunity to humiliate myself by running an awful long distance across London in return for raising, hopefully, a decent amount of money for these local charities.
Well, we certainly will be thinking of you and praying for you. We'll look out for you on the cameras as well and see if we can spot you.
I'm not in
And
costume or anything.
it's great to be in Lancaster for our synod, a place that's important to you. And we know you're part of the church family, the Methodist family here in Lancaster as well. So it's very special to have you with us in this way. You've been an MP, I think, since 2015.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you could paint a picture for us of the life of an MP. We do hear an awful lot about um, the kind of bad stuff that comes your way, and maybe you get that as a female MP as well. I don't know, but when I was speaking with Sir Lindsay, he obviously talked about the death of David Amos, and we think of Joe Cox, and David lost his life at surgery in a Methodist church. So we're conscious to pray for safety and security and well-being for you. How do you find the life as an MP at?
It is a privilege, and it's something that I wanted to do, that I think I went into with my eyes open. However, the job's changed quite a lot since 2015. So when I got elected in 2015, Joe Cox was one of the MPs got elected alongside me that day. And as a fellow Labour MP, a fellow Northern MP, and a fellow woman of a similar age, it was someone who I struck up a friendship with. So talking about sort of abuse and violence towards MPs, it wasn't something I considered when I went for the role, but it is something that's been brought very much into focus in recent years, shall we say. And David Amos was one of the most lovely MPs, and I know we wore different coloured rosettes at election time, but David was always very kind and considerate, and actually just cared so passionately about his constituency and spoke about it in a way that made us all feel like we knew Southend. And it really shocks me sometimes that it's these MPs that serve their communities and they're so lovely, that anyone could hate them so much that they would want to take their lives. I do find that hard to comprehend sometimes, because the truth of the matter is the majority of MPs, regardless of which political party they stand for, they do it because they want to make the world a better place. They've got a vision for a society that works better, is fairer, and we have different ideas about how we're going to get there, and that's why we've got different political parties. But ultimately, the vast majority of MPs are people who consider themselves public servants, serving their community and working hard. But obviously, the media tends to report the stories of when, the bad ones break the rules, and that then suddenly means that all MPs get tarred with the same brush, and that's quite hard actually to get your head to kind of make your peace with, because my sisters both work in Tesco, and they say to me, why do you want to do a job, Kat, where everyone hates you? I have to explain that not everyone hates me, and I hope they don't anyway. And I hope that for some people I make their lives better and I can make a difference. But yeah, it's not the kind of job where you can clock off at the end of your shift and go home and not think about it. Like, I'm the MP for Lancaster and Fleetwood 24/7. It doesn't matter if I'm in the fruit and veg section at Aldi, or whether or not I'm going into the Dukes of Lancaster with my 4-year-old son to go and see a puppet show. Like, if someone stops, you're on duty.
Yeah. I wonder, as a person of faith, whether that's an issue for you as an MP. Is it easy to be a person of faith and an MP?
I think for me personally, yes. I don't think it is for all my colleagues. There are many colleagues who have a faith and tend to be quite coy about it. My first job in politics was working for the Christian Socialist movement, so I've always been very upfront about my faith and my politics. But you do sometimes find that your political colleagues, once they find out you're a Christian, they sometimes start to assume things about what you might think of certain issues, and assign stereotypes towards you, or I guess some of them will probably treat me a little bit differently because of that. But on the other hand, there are fellowship groups here in Westminster where I can pray with and share fellowship with colleagues from different political parties and different Christian traditions, and build that really strong support network. Because being an MP is a weird job, if we're upfront and honest about it. It's not normal. And sometimes speaking to other MPs of faith about the challenges, even if they're from a different faith tradition or if they're from a different political party, there's enough common ground that you can share that very unique identity.
Yeah. Could you think of 2 or 3 things perhaps that you'd be happy to say we could pray for you and for our MPs?
Well, first of all, I think it is so important that we pray for all our politicians, be them MPs, councillors, elected mayors, because public services is hard, and in terms of what to pray for elected representatives, I think it's to have the integrity to be able to represent all your constituents fairly and not just those that shout loudest, to be able to hear those that have got very quiet voices but very legitimate concerns. If I'm honest, there are some days when if I open my inbox and I've got 200 emails from people saying that they care passionately about this probably quite legitimate issue, and then I have 1 or 2 emails from people concerned about something like some localized flooding. It might seem like that localized flooding issue is that's just affecting that village, and it's just a few houses in that village, and I've got 200 people who want me to spend today working on pushing the government around the ivory trade, for instance. But that's the more important thing, and it's about remembering that as a local representative, I'm the only person who can take up that issue that not as many people have written to me about, but is affecting those people's lives very much now, and only I can speak up for. I need to do that first, and then pick up the issues that other MPs are already picking up as well, and working with colleagues in that regard. And it's sometimes about figuring out what on earth do you prioritise to do first, because the truth is that so many really good issues to be campaigning on, and I sometimes feel terribly guilty that I do not have enough hours in the day to be able to give every single campaign issue the attention it deserves. So whether it's peace in the Middle East or the climate emergency, or whether it's flooding in Lancaster, all of these things need my attention, and they're all really legitimate, but where do you begin? So sometimes I think a clarity about where we act first.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Kat, our theme today is engaging with the local community, with the environment. We represent churches from right across Lancashire. all kinds of different contexts and places. I wonder, from your perspective, what the role of church and faith communities is in this moment in time in engaging with others in their communities. Do you think we have an important role?
Absolutely, without a doubt. So historically, the church has always played an incredibly important role in society. So, you know, access to education, for instance, why we've got so many church schools in this country. The church has played an active role in that sort of social services role in society. And I think that, after 13 years of austerity, um, public services have crumbled in many areas and are hanging on by a thread in others. So the church can step into that quite historic role, actually, of supporting food banks, but just ensuring that our communities have the most basic needs met. And I wish it wasn't like this. I love food banks in the sense of, like last time I did the London Marathon, I ran it for the food banks because I can see the benefit of the work they do. It's wrong that they should have to exist, and we're a rich country, we shouldn't have food banks in this country. However, whilst there is a need, there is a calling on us as Christians to meet that need and to do our best to support things like food banks, warm banks, to support our women's refuges. Whatever it is that we're doing as a church should be about meeting the needs of the community. And it breaks my heart, frankly, that there are people in our communities that are hungry. There are people in our communities that are cold because they can't afford to heat their homes. And that there are people living in fear of violence from people who should love them and don't feel safe in their own home. So these are probably areas where the church can step in and has a role to play.
Thank you. I think sometimes churches have had all the goodwill to do these things and haven't quite known how to communicate with the local authority or with public health, or with other agencies, sometimes other denominations, sometimes other faiths. And there are some of us feeling that there's a real moment in time now to step up and really be part of some impressive hubs that we see happening around. There's one here in Lancaster at Cornerstone, for example. I wonder if you think there are particular opportunities we should be grasping right now. And then secondly, is there an attitude that we should be bringing to these conversations? Is there a way we should approach conversation with local authority, local politicians, local health?
I think you're probably getting at, Bill, is that sometimes there's a bit of suspicion, isn't there, from local authorities or any organisation that's not a faith organisation. Why is this church trying to help? What is their real motivation? And I suppose if you don't come from that faith background, you probably don't understand why these people suddenly want to help. What's in it for them? Are they trying to recruit? And as a local authority, do I have to safeguard the local residents from this church that wants to support them? And I think it's about being really upfront. The reason that we are doing this is because as Christians we are called to serve our community, but being really upfront about what kind of position we're coming from. We're doing this because we want to help. This is not something where we're going to try and I think there's a very wrong but assumption sometimes that every church that wants to help a local council supply some hygiene products to communities that can't afford them, that they must be doing this to kind of get in there and try and recruit people to their church. Well, we can say what motivates us to do it, and if it's God's will that these people hear God's message and come to know Jesus through that, then that's great. But that's not what we're doing it for. We're doing it to serve our communities and to sort of almost try and put local authorities and organisations like that at ease. That like our motive, we are doing this because we want to help, and this is the reason is because we're called as Christians to do it. But it's very much that you get this practical help from us, and the rest is in God's hands.
Which is that's a great place to come to. So Kat, as I say, we'll be thinking of you and praying for you as you prepare for your big marathon tomorrow. You've got a final opportunity to say a few words of encouragement to a whole variety of people and all ages present at our event today about the role that we have as Christians, as disciples, as members of the community. to engage well with those around us. What would you like to say as a parting shot?
Well, I suppose that when it comes to engaging with politicians, politicians are human beings, and you know, we breathe the same air, we walk the same streets, we shop in the same supermarkets, and to reach out. And I've really valued the opportunity I've had to build relationships with churches beyond the Methodist Church in my own constituency, where those churches have reached out to me. And I'm sure that if you have not, you know, if you're listening now and actually your Methodist Church has not reached out to your local MP, I'm sure they'd be delighted to hear from you, and they will want to build that relationship too, because MPs need to know what's going on in their communities in order to be good MPs. So it's a two-way benefit here. You get to influence your member of parliament, and they get to know better what their community stands for, and talk about the issues. You know, that you will find a common ground. I'm sure of it. With every single Lancashire MP, I'm sure that every single church will find something where there is common ground. It might not be on everything, and I've never met anybody I've agreed with on everything in politics. Like, it doesn't happen. You will have disagreements, but as Christians, we know how to disagree well, don't we? So, but we also know where to find that common ground, and to build God's kingdom in a really practical way, and to work with members of our community who may not necessarily share our faith or yet, but we can actually build God's kingdom with them, even if they're not yet members of the church.